Man, it feels like it has been forever since I have seen you, my friend. How we doing today, Justin?
Wow. Saul, what did you do in your time off?
Jesus, I don't get any time off, man. It has been a whirlwind of a weekend, starting obviously with the news on Saturday morning, whether you're whatever side you're on. But it's just been crazy. It's just been crazy. All weekend's been crazy. So yeah, that's what I've been up.
Twilight Zone, man. This past week has definitely been one of the most bizarre weeks that I can ever remember in my lifetime. But I will say this, even though the country is moving forward, or we still need to tally all the votes, but Joe Biden is expected to be the 46th president of the United States. While we are going through this kind of change right now, there's still one thing, Saul, that is constant in American history, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers losing one possession games. It is the gift that keeps on giving, and I'm sad, but at the same time, I'm numb. So I'm excited because we're going to talk some football today, and we have a very special guest joining us. So I'm glad to be back, Saul.
Okay, the Chargers in one word: America.
America.
Your fans just might turn into all fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us, yo. Your fans just might turn into all fans. Be cool, it's just part of the program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You're not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us. For real.
As usual, you can find us on all your podcast streaming platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter as well. We do this live stream every Sunday night. Justin and I take our time to just kind of get into a little bit of everything because we're Arizona-based kind of media guys, and we don't want to talk about Arizona sports all the time. So we try to talk about everything else. And with that being said, we do have a special guest from ESPN. Justin, I will let you do the honors.
Yes, so this man has been incredible for as long as I followed him on Twitter. I mean, if you're a college football fan, if you're a fan of Pac-12 football, then you need to give this man a follow on Twitter, and that is ESPN's Kyle Bonagura. He is absolutely incredible at what he does, and I'm just thankful that we get to have him on this podcast to talk some Pac-12 football, which made its return to the college football scene this past weekend. So, Kyle, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
well, that was an incredible intro. A little bit generous on your behalf, but
no, you're the man.
Appreciate you guys having me. Yeah,
the man, the myth, the legend is in the house, is what he was pretty much saying. So, Kyle, yeah, thanks for joining us. Just to kind of get into it right off the bat, the Pac-12 comes back. Everybody except for 2 games or 4 teams play. What were your overall impressions from top to bottom of the conference?
Number one, it was just good to be able to watch Pac-12 football again, right? That's the number one thing. There was so many days and weeks over the last several months that you wondered if this day would ever arrive or the weekend would arrive, right? That we got to see these teams in action. So even though there was the 2 cancellations that obviously, presented somewhat of a dark cloud on the opening weekend, I thought the games were really entertaining, right? We started with the 9 a.m. game with USC and Arizona State, and the fact that you have anytime you need an onside kick to spur a team to victory late, that's entertainment value. I don't care who you're rooting for. If you're a neutral, watching that game, it certainly was entertaining. We had a couple, high scoring games later in the day. So we went from 9 a.m. all the way to, past 10 p.m. here, in California. So it was quite the day to get the season started.
What have you thought about the Pac-12 scheduling? Like ASU just announced today has to play at 8:30 next week local time, which is Arizona 7:30 on the far west coast, and they just got done playing at 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. That is 2 totally different extremes, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all. When you sign your television contracts and you give the networks the ability to start the games at whatever time they want to. Arizona State agreed to do the 9 a.m. game or the 10 a.m. local time game, 9 in California. That they had the right of refusal there, so I think they were comfortable doing that. And to turn around and play a late game is tough, right? Especially at Arizona State, who practices in the morning, right? The early kickoff is probably a little bit easier on their bodies because it's more consistent with how they practice every week to turn things around and play such a late kickoff. I could see them being sluggish in that one more effective than they were with the early kick against USC.
Man, that USC ASU game. What a game that was. What a game it was. And that to me was the most Clay Helton game I have ever watched, where they just looked like absolute dog crap for most of the game, and yet they find a way to pull it out. What are your thoughts on that game and what you saw from there?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot to get into there, right? I thought USC actually looked really good on offense until they got into the red zone, right? If it wasn't for the turnovers and the struggles in the red zone, USC could have put up a big number. They didn't, so there's room for criticism and room for improvement there. But if you're USC and you look at, I'd have to go back and look at the total numbers, but they significantly outgained ASU offensively, right? So that's usually a pretty good indicator of who was in control or who controlled the balance of play, right? The turnovers, you can't understate how important they are in football. So again, they have to be more careful with the ball. But I think you have to be pretty encouraged if you're USC. I mean, it was very close to being an outright disaster, and they would have slipped into irrelevancy, if they didn't get kind of the miracle finish that they got. But at the same time, they're 1-0, and they got an important win, right? Because Arizona State, Utah, and USC, I think most people can probably look at those three and say the champion of the South is probably going to come from that trio. And so to get that win against ASU so early in the year puts a lot of pressure on Arizona State and allows USC a little bit of comfort. They go into a pretty favorable stretch of their schedule, right? So they have, it's slipping.
Arizona's next.
So Arizona next.
That's a very easy start to the rest of your schedule.
Exactly. So it works out real nice, right? Because Arizona hasn't played too. So they have, not only is USC better at probably 20 of the 22 starting positions, somewhere in there, right? The point is that they're just a significantly more talented team. They also they got to play already. So that hurts Arizona from that standpoint. We're still unclear if Utah and UCLA is going to be able to play this week. They pushed that game back tonight. They announced tonight that they pushed it back and they'll play Saturday instead of Friday. Presumably that's to give Utah a little bit more time to get their guys out of the quarantine, COVID isolation protocols that canceled their first game. So we're looking at a real scenario where Utah is playing its first game of the year against USC in its third. So USC would be playing everyone in their season opener for 3 straight weeks, which is half the regular season. So it really sets up well for USC.
That's crazy. When you put it like that, honestly, we're U of A guys and that's whatever, but ASU, honestly, to me, ASU should be at the top. And they had a golden ticket right there, up by 13, with less than 5 minutes left to go. And somehow, they did get an unfortunate bounce in the end zone on a 4th down that led to USC's first touchdown in the 14-point comeback. But I did think that ASU defensively held up better, even though the numbers would tell you otherwise, right? 556 total yards for USC. Keaton Slovis threw for 381. Yeah. It seems like a big number, but when you narrow it down, they were getting everything they wanted between the 20s and nothing after the 20s until the very end when they were able to cash in. I was very impressed with ASU. Their running game was amazing. They had over 250 plus yards between the three, between White, Tranum, and Daniels. What do you think of Jayden Daniels, though? Jayden Daniels, obviously a Heisman hopeful someday. A lot of hype and a lot of hope on this kid's shoulders. I thought he ran the ball better than ever, but he left a little bit to be desired throwing the ball. What were your overall impressions of him?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, right? He looked really good. He's when he gets outside the pocket and can, third and long, if he's able to throw around, he has that element that a lot of teams don't have with the quarterback, right? He ran for 111 yards on 11 carries, something like that. So it shows how explosive he is as an athlete, but at the same time, you have to get more from him, right? You have to get more from him out of the passing game, and I think we will. I'm really confident that he's going to develop into one of the better players in the conference. He's almost there. He probably should be there at some point this year if under normal circumstances, right? If we had spring ball, we had a fall camp, and really allowed Tim to kind of nurture his talent along, we would have expected really big things from him. And we still should. But at the same time, he certainly, was an area with the way Arizona State played offensively that you could have looked at that and said, okay, we need more from our quarterback in the passing game. And it's obviously a big part of the game, right?
For sure.
The Pac-12 found out why starting the season in November is kind of a bad thing, right? Because earlier in the season, for a lot of college football teams that were able to start, a month, 2 months ago, if a game were to be canceled, they could just make it up later on in the year. The Pac-12 doesn't really have that room for error. They don't have that right now. So Arizona, Utah gets canceled. Apparently, an entire position group tested positive for COVID-19. And then last time I checked on Twitter, Utah got tested today, and everyone came up negative. So in that case, do you believe that maybe Arizona should have been given a win in this case? Because the Wildcats held up their end of the bargain. They did everything correctly to set themselves up for this game, but then Utah is put on quarantine. They go into quarantine because of positive COVID-19 tests. Do you think that with the way the Pac-12 is set up, maybe they should have rewarded teams who don't test positive leading up to that game?
Absolutely not.
No?
You can't incentivize a team to try to get out of quarantine and isolation protocols related to a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
If you incentivize a team to fudge the results, some improprieties come into play. Absolutely. That's a non-starter. You can't do that because health and safety has to come number one, right? You have to take care of the virus first. That has to be the number one concern for everyone. Pac-12, SEC, NFL, everyone. That's got to be the first thing you worry about taking care of. And it's unfortunate the way it's worked out because I think you're seeing some inconsistencies with the way the contact tracing protocols work, right? And a lot of this is out of the hands of the players and the coaches and the athletic departments. We saw Cal's probably a better example of how the inconsistencies are applied than Utah, right? Because Utah said it was underneath the 53-person scholarship limit for the game, right? You can't play a college football game if you don't have 53 scholarship players. You just can't do it. Cal had one positive case, asymptomatic, and that wiped out an entire position group, the defensive line for Cal. The way that the contact tracing protocols are applied in Berkeley are different than other places. Yep. The CDC protocol for contact tracing recently changed and says that close contacts for COVID-19 are 15 minutes of close contact within 6 feet over a 24-hour period. That is different than the designed rules that Cal agreed to when they designed their practice protocols. When they designed the protocols, it was for 15 minutes of continuous contact at 6 feet or less is what designated you as a close contact. So you could be in that under window, right? You could be 10 minutes close contact during a drill, shift to something else, get a break, and then kind of get back into it. But the CDC guidelines have changed, and Berkeley, the city of Berkeley, is using the updated guidelines, right? So now we're talking a tricky protocol to work with, because if it's 15 minutes over a 24-hour period, man, that's really tough to deal with.
Just real quick, your one final thought on the Pac-12. If there's a Pac-12 team or two that goes undefeated, what is more likely to happen? A Pac-12 team doesn't get to the BCS or not the BCS, but the college football playoff because they only played 6 or 7 games, or a Pac-12 team doesn't get to the college football playoff despite going undefeated because they didn't play 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, I think the amount of games is going to be a big negative for the Pac-12. I mean, we've seen the Pac-12 undervalued in the college football playoff rankings for years when you're playing the same amount of games and you're having comparable amounts of wins, right? So if you have a Pac-12 champion, let's just call it Oregon, right? Say Oregon finishes the season 7-0. You have Notre Dame or Clemson. Say they both finish with 1 loss. 0 chance that Oregon at 7-0 is going to leapfrog a 1-loss Clemson or Notre Dame, who, they'll get 2 teams from the ACC in that scenario. You're probably not going to jump a 2-loss SEC team, right? I just think that the way that teams are going to be evaluated this year, that's going to come into play. Do I know that for sure? No, you can allow for the possibility that a 7-0 Oregon could get in, or USC, whoever it might be, but things have to break in a way that's beneficial for those teams is kind of how I foresee it playing out.
Now, fortunately, in that case, if the Pac-12 isn't going to get in, maybe the Big 12 doesn't get in, this really opens up the door for a group of 5 team to get in. Cincinnati is a team that comes to mind. BYU, they have 2 games left on their schedule and 2 games that they should be favored in, considering how they've looked all season long. I think the most difficult game they have on schedule is the season finale against San Diego State. They get through the next 2 games, which is kind of spread out until early December. I could easily see an undefeated BYU team getting in there, and they deserve it considering how dominant they've looked. What do you think about BYU or Cincinnati getting into the CFP?
So I'll buy Cincinnati as being more realistic because BYU's schedule is just really bad.
Sure.
There is going to be at the end of it, there's going to be 0 quality wins, right? San Diego State, which would maybe be their second best win. Houston maybe is in that mix. San Diego State just lost to San Jose State this past weekend, right? So if that's who you're hanging your hat on, a win against San Diego State at the end to punctuate it, I mean, I just don't think that's going to be enough. I mean, the teams that I don't have it in front of me right now, but I looked at it. I've looked at it quite a few times to kind of look into this possibility, right? As BYU as a playoff team, I just don't see it. I mean, they're absolutely going to be in the mix for a New Year's Six bowl, and I think that's satisfactory and a good reward for a team that's been very good, right? I mean, I've watched almost all of their games, and they've been incredible. So I think you likely see BYU on pace to head to the Fiesta Bowl. Cincinnati, depends on what happens elsewhere, right? I think they've got enough good teams in their conference in the American that could finish the season ranked, right? So you could end up with 3-4 ranked wins possibly if you're Cincinnati, maybe not that many, but 2 or 3 at least, right? So if you have 2 or 3 ranked wins, undefeated, conference championship, more games, that's going to look a lot better on paper than BYU does. And, Cincinnati's ranked ahead of BYU right now too. So they don't have as far to climb. I mean, in the AP poll, right? We haven't seen the playoff rankings yet, but it usually holds serve, right? It's usually pretty close, at least when it opens up. So I think Cincinnati, there's a pathway there. I still think it's unlikely, right? Because, I mean, even when UCF was on its 20-something game winning streak at the end of year 2, they finished 8th in the college football playoff rankings. We've seen the committee value the group of 5 teams less than the AP poll and the coaches poll have, because it's the AP poll and coaches poll, you win, you move up, right? It's a lot less they're less stringent about the strength of schedule. I think you kind of just accept where you were the week before and go up or down. So that's kind of where I'm at with those 2 teams.
We actually have a fan question. I know this might catch you off guard, but Kyle, you know what? You're a college football expert. Let's just give it a go and see how this goes. But my man, Sippy Sports Show wants to know, I'm a Southern Miss fan, fellas. Thoughts on who the next coach could be?
Southern Miss. That's a real good challenge. Southern Miss.
I've actually heard some Rich Rod ramblings. I've heard some Rich Rod rambling.
Okay. I could get behind that. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. We'll go with that. I don't have a strong recommendation off the top of my head for Southern Miss. I'll have to study up on the.
There's so many good quality coaches out there that are assistants, right? All across the country, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. Rich Rod, because he was at Ole Miss, who was their offensive coordinator for a little bit. I think it makes sense because he's in that region. He has a lot of ties in that region, not only at Glenville State, but also at Clemson for a little bit before moving on to West Virginia and then Michigan. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, right? And then on top of that, you have other assistant coaches like, I'm sorry, but I think Antonio Pierce, the defensive coordinator at ASU, I think he's going to get a job at some point, especially because Herm and how he's trying to promote all his guys to get big jobs, because that's what he's kind of leveraging ASU to be, is like the next step up before you hit it big time. So those are a couple of guys that I would throw out there.
I think with it at a place like that, you have to really have ties to the area. And that's why a candidate really didn't come to mind right away. I'm just not familiar with the region as well, right? With Antonio Pierce, I think he's an intriguing Mountain West type candidate. I don't know if he's going to go down to the South without having been there. I mean, he was a high school coach in LA. Now he's at ASU, obviously has the strong ties there. I could see him landing somewhere like, San Diego State just changed, right? But like a program that was kind of that caliber, right?
Is Brent Venables ever going to leave? Is he ever going to take a head coaching job anywhere?
You kind of feel like if he wanted to, he would have already done it. So don't write it off, but that guy's had so many opportunities. I mean, when you've coordinated defenses at the highest level of the sport, and some people just don't want the additional headache, right, of being a head coach and all the response. He's making generational money, coaching the defense at a place that it gets anyone they want. Is in a conference where they're going to challenge for the title each and every year. That thing's not slowing down anytime soon. So I don't know. It seems like he would have wanted to. The opportunity is going to be there if he wants it.
Now, hear me out here, and this is completely out of left field. Why not do a PR hire and get Brett Favre? Like, what's Brett Favre doing nowadays? Isn't he coaching somewhere?
You want to go hire Deion Sanders now too? What are we doing here? Brett Favre, not a lick of coaching experience ever. Hasn't even stepped on the sideline to coach. Hey, let's bring this guy back.
It'd be like the Penny Hardaway of college football. Penny's coaching in Memphis, Brett Favre at Southern Miss.
Yeah, but Penny was at least a high-level high school coach in Memphis and had ties to all the recruits. Brett Favre hasn't been doing anything to step into a college football program, especially college football too, where the rules are so different, the recruiting rules, the donor rules. All of that is such a different experience in the NFL. I mean, do I want that to happen? Absolutely, because I would be entertained to no end. But realistically, I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon.
Final question, and this is a legit one, not a crazy one. Before you go, sure. COVID, Notre Dame, Rona, all that good stuff. But Ian Book had probably his best performance as a Notre Dame quarterback yesterday, and I feel like it was a great moment for Notre Dame because they finally kind of overcame that big hurdle of beating a top team. And then it just kind of got glazed over because of what the student body did. And it's really unfortunate for the players. What were your overall impressions on that?
I thought Justin Turner shouldn't set protocols for the Notre Dame student section is what I thought. It's the first thing that came to mind because it's the same thing. It totally took away from this like historic win. And at the end of the game, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm like, why are those people on the field during a pandemic potentially subjecting their team to contact tracing protocols and potentially costing them the ability to play future games? Like, listen, like I'm all for storming the field, storming the court, do it after every win. I don't care. Under normal circumstances, I think it's fun. Love seeing it, but come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
it's just we got to consider the circumstances. They legitimately could have cost their team the availability to play,
and they still could.
Right? No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's certainly on the table. That one of those students came down and transmitted COVID-19 to one of the players, and if is it worth it to just go celebrate on the field? Probably not.
Could you imagine a scenario right now where Notre Dame misses 2 more weeks because of COVID, right? And so they have 2 less games than everybody else in the conference. And then they have to play Clemson again, because they most likely will, in the ACC championship. And they lose their first game to Clemson, but they're only 8-1 on the year instead of 10-1 or whatever the case may be. They're not getting into the college football playoff because of that very loss.
That is a scenario that is 100% on the table. Probably not going to happen.
Oh, it will happen.
It could happen.
It will happen.
You can,
because they're not beating Taylor Lawrence. I'm sorry, they're just not. Not after what I saw last night. Their defense needs help, obviously, because they got shredded last night. I just don't see them beating Trevor Lawrence, because there were some throws last night that I can't even pronounce his last name. It's like Ugamalele or something like that.
DJU.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, Clemson's definitely the favorite next time around with Lawrence. Like, no question of that. You're playing at Notre Dame with a backup quarterback, and it's about as equal as possible. You change the circumstances, play at a neutral site with Trevor Lawrence, arguably the best player in the country on the field. Yeah, it tips the scales back towards Clemson.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Kyle, we appreciate you joining us on the Total BS podcast. Justin, you good?
I'm all good, man. It's just that whole game last night. First with Trevor Lawrence on the sideline wearing a mask and then leaning over to talk to one of his teammates and then taking the mask off and like talking right into his face. Kind of defeats the purpose of wearing a mask. And then the Notre Dame student body just rushing the field. It was like COVID was rubbing its hands at that game last night.
Dudes are wearing their masks like this. Like, what are we doing out here? Like, if you're going to wear it, wear it. If you're not going to wear it, then take it off.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter at this point if you're not going to really wear it. So, Kyle, my man, thank you so much. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on ESPN.com, Bonagura ESPN on Twitter. Don't tweet at me.
There you go. Don't tweet at Kyle Bonagura. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Had a good time.
All right. Take care. All right, that's Kyle Bonagura from ESPN. That was fun. That was fun. It's always good to get some insight from guys that cover a lot of college football outside of just our region. And so, and also shout out to Sippy Sports Show. I don't know what your deal is, If you got a podcast, hey man, put it up on the link and we'll share it for everybody to see, man. We're all about spreading the love. So if you got something going on your end, we appreciate it. And we appreciate you following the show and subscribing and being very interactive. And we encourage everybody out there to be interactive. If you have some questions, please hit them up in the chat and we will answer them the best we can. But anyway, Justin, we talked about it at length off air about Clemson and Notre Dame. Fantastic game. Just a fantastic game.
Wasn't it?
Very exciting, double overtime. But good. That student body.
Yeah. I was keeping track of the game on my phone for a little bit, and then I figured the game had already ended. And so I turned on to NBC late, like right when the game was going into overtime, because I thought, Saturday Night Live, Dave Chappelle's going to be on SNL. Like let's tune in to watch some Chappelle. And then it says 33-33 overtime, Clemson Notre Dame. I'm like, okay, well, looks like we're watching this game. But I was very impressed with DJ Ugalele. I've heard 40 different pronunciations for this guy's last name, but Kyle said it best. Just call him DJ U. DJ U is going to be a star in college football. Once Trevor Lawrence is gone from Clemson, I mean, this is going to be the next big thing in college football. He was a highly touted recruit coming out of high school. He's also a one hell of a baseball pitcher. Like they were showing his ESPN card, and it said comparisons, and they put Roger Clemens in there. So he's a great pitcher. Like he's just a great athlete. And I thought what he was able to do over the last couple of weeks is pretty impressive. But looks like Clemson's going to get Trevor Lawrence back, and they'll be okay.
Yeah, they'll be just fine. Sippy actually asked, do private schools have to adhere to NCAA rules like public universities do? And the answer is yes. So this is all state by state, and then it's all conference by conference. It doesn't matter. So Notre Dame is a private school, but Indiana has lax rules in terms of attendance at sporting events. You can see the Colts games. They have fans there. So Notre Dame, same thing. But obviously in the heat of the moment when students are rushing the field, clearly that is against protocol, and I'm sure they're going to hear about it. And also Sippy said, no, just a huge drunk Southern Miss fan that started a YouTube show. Again, hit the YouTube show up in this comment section and we will share it. Not a big deal. Again, thank you for participating with us. So anyway, and then moving on again to the Pac-12, a lot of cool stuff happened this weekend. Nothing like really earth-shattering. It'll be very interesting to see SC playing on the road for the first time against U of A. I know we kind of bagged on U of A a little bit here and there just because we don't have high expectations of them. But again, it's year 3 under Kevin Sumlin. You don't know what's going to happen. We have no idea what to expect from this team. Who knows? But the problem is, and Kyle kind of alluded to it, there is no preseason. It's full go from the jump, and you're playing the best team in most likely the Pac-12. So for Arizona, that's a tall mountain to climb to start to see.
And USC, I mean, they're 3 deep at every single position. Like they can have injuries and they can afford to miss some guys. Arizona, they don't really have that luxury, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Linebackers, Colin Schooler, Tony Fields, all left because they were under the impression that they weren't going to be playing college football because the Pac-12 told everyone, we're not going to get started until 2021. So if you want to leave, you might as well pack up your bags and go. And that's exactly what they did. And Arizona fans got to be sick to their stomachs because Tony Fields leads the Big 12 in tackles this year. Yeah, and it's just so there is no depth on Arizona. So it's going to be tough. But in the COVID-19 affected college football season, anything can happen. And who knows, maybe Arizona has some guys that they're just kind of keeping in their back pocket and they compete. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. I think the thing is if maybe if my aunt had a penis, she'd be my uncle. Oh, jeez. I
Man.
love my alma mater. You love your alma mater. It's just
Oh,
we
man.
just want more from our alma mater. That's all it is. Anyway, so that leads us to one of our final segments. Check that. No, it isn't, because we have a new change for you today. My man, Justin Spears, came up with a great idea today. Oh, yes. So we are going to have a new segment, and it's called Stop the Count. Stop the count. And it's not, listen, don't get offended, okay? We don't care what side of the political landscape you're on or whatever. But we wanted to take a look at 3 apiece, or maybe a combination of games that would have had a different outcome had they not gone all the way to the end. So, Mr. Justin Spears, you lead it off first.
Stop the count. Stop the count. The game that I want to stop the count is my Chargers every single week. Stop the count after 3 quarters, because if you stop the count after 3 quarters, the Chargers would be undefeated this season. But that's not one of the examples that I'm bringing up. My first one saw the 73-9 Golden State Warriors in 2016.
Oh, yeah.
If they had stopped the count after 4 games, they were up 3-1 against the LeBron James-led Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yep.
We would be talking about this team as arguably the greatest team of all time. Saul, I know you got a very soft spot in your heart for the 96 Bulls, the team that went 72-10. I still think that is the greatest team in NBA, and it's only because Golden State couldn't finish the deal. If they stopped the count after 4 games, we'd be talking about the greatest regular season in NBA history to go with that championship ring. And now nobody really even acknowledges the 73-9 Golden State Warriors. They're just known as the team to choke away a 3-1 lead in the NBA Finals. So that is my first example of stop the count. Saul, what is yours?
My version of Stomp the Count would be the opposite of what you just said, because in your example, you used one Mr. LeBron James coming back on the Golden State Warriors at 3-1. And if we all had if a lot of people, especially in the Akron, Ohio area, had their way and they stopped the count, LeBron James would be the greatest basketball player of all time because he has 12 NBA championships, but he doesn't. Okay. So that's what I want to say. Now, honestly, reality speaking, my stop the count is, one Mr. Muhammad Ali in the Thrilla in Manila against one George Foreman. And George was just going to town on Mr. Ali, just giving it to him. And that's where the famous rope-a-dope came into play. And he was just kind of waiting him out. If that fight happens today, I don't know if Muhammad Ali survives. But he was so good with his hands and his body. He just wore George Foreman out, let him punch himself out, and then he knocked my man out. And so had they stopped that fight, would have been one of the biggest travesties of all time. And Muhammad Ali wouldn't be as big a legend as he was.
Man, that's the GOAT right there.
Oh yeah,
Muhammad Ali.
Sure.
That's the greatest of all time. Hey, let me ask you this, Saul.
Sure.
You have a George Foreman grill?
I do not. I used to. I do not. Do you?
Okay.
Do you?
No. And every single time I don't have a George Foreman grill, but every single time I think
it's like the single guy starter
Foreman,
kit.
I just think of his grills. Yeah, it's
like the single man starter kit right there.
Absolutely. No, but now that we're in 2020, the single guy starter kit is an air fryer, and that has been absolutely money for me. Dude.
I sent my son off to college in Louisiana by himself. Okay. Dad had to make sure everything was all good in Louisiana. So we drove 16 hours all the way out to Shreveport, Louisiana, took him to his apartment, got him all settled in. And what did Pops bring? You're damn right. I got him an air fryer. I was like, listen, son, if you don't do shit else, you will cook in this thing 24/7. You could cook everything in it. It is the best thing you can purchase as a single student.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love my air fryer.
My next stop the count. My next stop the count. Stop the count in the 2006 Rose Bowl / National Championship, January 4th, 2006. Texas versus USC. Stop the count with 1:49 left in the fourth quarter. Because if you stop the count with 1:49 left in the fourth quarter, USC wins that ball game, and the Trojans become the supreme dynasty in college football, the first ever to win 3 consecutive national championships. No team has ever won 3 straight in college football. And for it to possibly have been a Pac-12 team, because, you know, you think of college football, you think SEC, you think about the South and the rich history that is down there. But USC, if they were to close out Texas, we would be talking about that dynasty under Pete Carroll as the greatest in college football history. And, I mean, Vince Young's legacy in college football would have been just the guy who had a really good season but came in second place, not only in the Heisman race, but in the national championship. So that is my stop to count that I think really had a big impact on college football.
Lendell White, all he had to do was get 1 yard. 1 yard. 1 yard against Texas, and Vince Young doesn't do what he does. So my last one, actually, we'll just do a couple. So my last one is unfortunately one. So you're a Chargers fan, and you know the Chargers come back every weekend. But this season, there's been another team that has also chargered, and we call it falconed. And it originated because of the Super Bowl 28-3 comeback loss by the Patriots, and the Falcons had it stopped at the end of the fourth quarter. Or hell, if it had stopped halfway through the fourth quarter, they would be the world champions. But it didn't go down like that, did it?
Ryan was MVP that year, and these guys had Tom Brady in shambles. Like, I thought that was it. That was it for Tom Brady. They're going down 28-3. He's hanging his head. The Patriots look like they were about to get knocked out. And then the greatness of Tom Brady happened.
And the awfulness of Dan Quinn, clock management, and play calling happened as well. Like, just run the ball. Just run the ball. Also, can I throw another one in there? This is a sports reference. But, hey, Rocky, throw the towel, and your man doesn't get killed in the ring by Drago. How about that? That's my other one. There you go. That's my last one, and I'm out.
Ooh. Okay. Well, we're gonna have some more. We have some in the bag, and like Saul said earlier, we don't care what political preference you are. Like we're not going to share which side we lean. We're just Americans, and this just so happened to have been a popular phrase that was produced by number 45 Donald Trump. So as soon as he said stop the count, I thought we gotta make this a segment. We gotta make this a segment for sports.
There was a lot of phrases shared over the weekend that we can either share or not share on this show. But hey, you know what? I will say this for the good of the country, whether your guy won or lost, I am just glad it is all over. At least on paper, it's all over, right? They still got to go to court and do all this other stuff. But I'm so tired of seeing all the signs around the streets. I'm so tired of people like just throwing everything in everybody else's face. Like, just get over it and move on. Oh my gosh. Because, you know, you just. It's time for everybody's favorite segment. Don't be that guy. You just don't want to be that guy. Don't be that guy. Justin, who's your first don't be that guy?
So, well, first of all, I got to say, I'm going to double down on your statement about being glad that the election is over because of the signs. I'm also just happy that we're not getting any more text messages from random people. And how many times did Estella How many times did Estella look over at your phone and a random number popped up and it said, "Hi, this is Deborah." ...
So who the hell's Deborah? I'm like, oh, I don't know who Deborah is.
Who's
You're always
Deborah?
lying. You're always lying. I'm like, what? No, yeah. It was always like
lie,
a Marjorie. It was always like a Marjorie or Esther. So like she was like, what kind of old girls are you talking to? So it was all good. Eunice.
This is Gunther.
Yeah, this is Earl. So
All right. My don't be that guy for this week. First of all, Notre Dame. Can we all agree the Notre Dame student body and everyone who rushed the field, like that is, don't be that guy. If you're going to a college football game and your team is the home team and they win and they have a great game, don't rush the field, because we're still in the middle of a global pandemic and you could be that person that cost your team a game. So don't be that guy. Don't rush the field. Don't cost your team a game. But my other don't be that guy is this father who decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to show my son tough love as a basketball player. They have a hoop set up in the house. The son is driving to the basket. He's trying to dunk it or have a strong layup. And his father, every single time he goes at the rim, just decides to swat him. Every single time, showing no mercy on his son whatsoever. But his son had one impressive move to finally score. Yeah,
and unfortunately we don't have it, but he did have an impressive move. So you could just walk him through it. It's all good.
Okay, so on the last attempt going to the basket, the little man pump faked. The dad attempted to swat the shot, and little man gave old dad the Draymond Green and hit him right where the sun don't shine, and it distracted him, made him realize, oh crap, my son just hit me in the groin, and then little man dunked it. So point is, don't be that guy, because you always got to protect your McNuggets.
You always got to protect
your
McNuggets.
You're always good. Keep your head on a swivel.
Always got to protect the McNuggets. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm actually, you know what? I got you solid right now. I finally fixed it. We're good to go. So, so Justin, here's your video that you wanted. Let me share it for everybody to see, so we can get this party started.
It's so funny. It is so funny. It is so funny. And I think a lot of dads, you're going to watch this and realize, okay, if I try this with my son, I got to make sure that I either wear a cup or I protect myself.
Yeah.
So,
then he dunks on him, and it's like, yeah, get up, and then he do push-ups.
Yeah.
But that's all right, because kid's got a plan. So he goes and gets his back. He kind of regroups himself, takes a little bit extra time. He's like, all right, I got you now. Mom's egging him on. It's like, come on, baby. He's like, oh, spin move. Yeah. Jeez. Oh, you always got to protect the McNuggets.
And I like how the son's just kind of like standing there looking at him, and then like, looks back at the camera and does and the double fist pumps like, yeah, got him.
Got him.
That's so great.
Hey, take your whooping like a man, Dad.
Exactly.
I haven't had that moment for me, so I thank God for that. But yeah, I mean that's a good one. I really like that one.
What is your oldest? Hold on, real quick. What is your oldest son good at that he's beating you at?
Ooh, wiffle ball. Yeah, wiffle ball.
Wiffle ball.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we used to have some epic games of wiffle ball, and then we didn't, and so yeah, he's a baseball player, and I remember one time we were playing, we were out in Colorado, and he hit me with a curveball, and I struck out, and he was up, and I threw this wicked slider, and in a wiffle ball you can make the ball spin any type of way, and he knocked it not only over my head, but also behind the house into the streets. And I was like, Yeah, he just beat me. And I could never get a pitch past him since. So that's when I knew. But my don't be that guy is for those of you guys out there that haven't heard of the Packy Chip Challenge, the one chip challenge, I highly encourage you to go on TikTok or Twitter or anything like that and look it up because it's pretty cool. And my don't be that guy is this one guy who just thought he was just too tough for it. He was just too tough for it. So like, why does he have to worry about it? He doesn't have to worry about it. Oh, but he does. And
Ooh, got the gray bandana and everything.
so he's sitting here and he's talking. He's like, man, this is just ain't nothing. It's just a one chip challenge. No big deal. Then he's like, oh yeah, he hears the music in the background. He's grooving. He's shaking. He's moving. Yeah. He's like, oh yeah, this ain't nothing. No big deal. He's got his Bud Light ready to go just in case, but he puts it down. It's no big deal. I mean, come on, man. Got some hot sauce in the back. We can make this hotter. No big deal. Yeah, we're good. We good. But
yeah,
he's like, so now he's talking about the hot sauce.
The second I knew he was in trouble was when he took his shirt and wiped his mouth.
And then he's like, man, we're good. Whoa. Wait, now it's getting a little too hot.
He needs some milk.
That's it, man. So that's my don't be that guy. Don't be that guy that thinks you're too that 95,000 people could try this challenge and you're the one. Man, don't faze me. Come on now. You ain't a chicken. Did you know that about chickens?
What?
Did you know that about chickens?
No, what?
Chickens cannot taste heat.
What?
Yeah, so chickens lack the sense of heat. They can't taste the heat.
What?
And the or not the toxins, but the tannins inside the peppers, they can't taste it. So there's a farm out in New York. It's called Blue Hill Farms, and they have it's like a 3-star Michelin star restaurant, and they actually feed the chickens like red peppers, habaneros, and stuff like that, because then it comes out in the eggs that they produce. And the eggs that they produce, that's what they use to make some of their meals. It's amazing. Food, man. It's just so fucking amazing. It's amazing. Anyway,
Wow.
yeah, so I'm going to start off Tell Me Something Good. That's our last segment of the night. Tell Me Something Good. And my Tell Me Something Good is one of my favorite boxers of all time. And he went through a lot of stuff early in his life. He had a crazy, wicked, ugly childhood growing up, became one of the best boxers of all time. To this day, I don't think anybody would ever want to take a punch from one Mr. Mike Tyson. He had some of his trials and tribulations, but he's found himself, right? He's found himself. He's put himself together. He's doing a lot of things with marijuana in terms of self-healing. And he's also he practices he's a Muslim and he practices that religion. And so in this day and age of acceptance or lack thereof, there was a coffee shop in the middle of Los Angeles that was very, very vehemently against Arabic people and Muslims. And so Mike Tyson caught wind of this, and he decided that he was going to take it upon himself to go and take a look at this place. And he actually did end up praying in that coffee shop. He prayed in the coffee shop. And are you going to be the owner that goes up to him and says, hey, man, you need to get the hell out of here? Probably not. Because even though Mike Tyson is kind of reborn and refocused, you still don't want to challenge Mike Tyson. So they let him be. And to this day, I don't know if they've changed their policy or not, but I think that was a wake-up call for that owner. Like, these aren't bad people. All because you practice a religion or come from a certain area of the country doesn't mean that you're automatically a bad person. And Mike Tyson is very much trying to challenge that viewpoint.
Yeah, I'm surprised that this coffee shop is allowed to do this in 2020. Like you're denying someone service because
it's your own private
of their race and background.
It's your own private business. You could do whatever you want, which is the unfortunate part.
That's terrible. That's just absolutely terrible. And I'm actually happy that Mike Tyson, went to that coffee shop because, like you said, Saul, who's going to be that guy that tells him? Because if I'm Mike Tyson, and remind you, Mike Tyson is currently training right now because he's got a fight with Roy Jones Jr. So this
coming
is
up. Isn't it next weekend?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
or I think, or it's coming up relatively soon. I can't. I don't want. I want to. Don't quote me on that it's next week. But he's training right now. And one thing about heavyweight boxers that are world champions is that if they're still able to function and if they're still able to move and kind of exercise, they still have heavy hands and they will knock you out. It doesn't matter how old Mike Tyson gets. He's going to be in his 60s, heck, maybe even in his 70s, and if he's got a little juice left, he's still going to knock me out if I even dare test him. So, if I'm that person, I'm changing their policy real quick because now that Mike Tyson has shed a spotlight on this coffee shop, I mean, it's going to cause a lot of reaction and hopefully for the good because you can't do that as a private business owner. You have to be open and welcoming to everyone because not only does that help your business, but that's just a part of being a good human. And just denying service because of religion and background, that's just un-American, man.
Yeah. What's your tell me something good?
So my tell me something good. Saul, do you have the picture up by any chance? Do you have that ready? It's the I don't know if you got it.
I will get it for you.
But
I will get it.
I will say this. Okay. Well, I mean, I could just tell people if just in case you don't get it, but I sent this to Saul kind of in a joking way, saying that this was going to be my tell me something good for today, but it was a family photo of Derek Fisher and Matt Barnes. I wouldn't call it a family photo, but it was just a photo of members of the family together. So Derek Fisher is dating Matt Barnes' ex-girlfriend, and they have kids together. Derek Fisher also has kids himself. Well, Derek Fisher and Matt Barnes had this beef because they had this love triangle with the same woman, and they could just never get over their differences. And Kanye West even joked about it in his song 30 Hours. I'm going to drive 90 miles to beat a guy's ass just like Matt Barnes, because Matt Barnes did that. He drove like 90 miles to go punch Derek Fisher, and now they're together. They oh man, me too. I want to be a fly on that wall during that altercation. But they finally have put their differences in the past, and they realize, listen, we have a family, right? And even though that this couple isn't together and it's in the past, this is what's going on right now. For Derek Fisher and Matt Barnes to finally put away their differences in this year, in 2020, it's definitely given me a little bit of hope for the future. Cool. But my serious, more emotional tell me something good is, and it comes off of bad news with the passing of longtime Jeopardy host Alex Trebek, who passed away earlier Sunday morning. And he's the greatest of all time. And, one thing that, whenever a key figure, whenever such a monumental figure in the entertainment world and just the world in general passes away, you hear about the impact that they have had on so many people. And one person, and we can't play the clip, obviously, because of copyright issues, but this one person went on Jeopardy. This was just last week. And he broke down crying because he told Alex Trebek, I learned English because of you. I don't know if he's from overseas or if English is just a second language in his household, but he learned English just from watching Jeopardy. And he said, every single day I would sit on my grandpa's lap and watch you. And I learned English mainly from you. And he went on Jeopardy and won and started crying because he finally met the guy that taught him English. And Alex Trebek has had such an impact on so many people, and it's unfortunate that he had to pass away. But my Tell Me Something Good has Alex Trebek being just an absolute incredible human, and we send our condolences to the Trebek family and everyone who's affected by this loss.
Absolutely. No, that's very well said, and thank you for sharing that. No, I mean, that was a big loss this morning, and I know a lot of people are feeling the pain of that. And I mean, not unexpected, but it still hurts. You know what I mean? And so when you see something like that happen, all you can do is pray and move on, man. And that's what I think a lot of people are doing. 2020 continues to just be, I think it is the worst year of all time. And at least in my lifetime. And but you know what? We'll leave everybody up on an uplifting note. We want to do something that's going to make a difference. And there's a lot of people out there that are looking for a job. You're looking like maybe, hey, how the hell do I do an interview via Zoom? And we have something special for you. Next Sunday, we have a special guest. It is one, her name is Samantha, and she runs a company called Ambition Mate. And she is going to come on the show next week, and she is going to give everybody advice on how to get a job amidst this pandemic. So we're excited to have her. And to make it even better, we're going to put Justin through the test. Justin is going to go through an interview. He is going to do a mock interview for you all so you can see exactly what to do and what not to do, while Samantha and I poke fun at him. So she'll be running the interview. Justin will actually be in the interview, and it'll be fun. But she's a great follow on Twitter. Just look at ambition.mate, M-A-T-E, and she's a great follow. She gives a lot of great tips, a lot of great things that you can look for when you're trying to find a job. One of the biggest questions I had was, how do you dress for an interview via Zoom? Because I literally had an interview for, like, let's just say it was like a promotion or something like that, right? And the first thing that people said was, why are you wearing a tie? I was dumbfounded, because I'm like, you're supposed to dress for the job you want, not the job that you have. And if we all dressed for the job that we have, we'd all be dressing in t-shirts and basketball shorts and sweatpants. Like, come on now, I gotta step it up. You know what I mean? So I asked her if that was the norm, and so she gave me some really good feedback. And we're going to get into all that good stuff next week, next Sunday. Please join us for another episode of the Total BS podcast. Justin, my man, tell them where they can find us.
Do I have to wear a tie next week? Do I have to dress up?
Hells yeah.
Oh man.
Hells yeah. This is gonna be fun, baby.
Right.
This is gonna be fun.
Like
we're gonna get you that six-figure job. One of these days, we're gonna get you that six-figure job now. we're gonna get you out of Tucson.
And it's like I'm gonna wear my clip-on tie, and it's gonna be a note of what not to do. Don't wear don't
look
ties.
like an asshole.
Wear a normal tie. That's the motto, baby. But anyways, Total BS Podcast. Give us a subscribe and a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts. And for the live stream video, give us hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Also, hit that subscribe button on Twitch as well. And then give us a follow on Facebook so you can watch us everywhere. Like, Total BS Podcast is everywhere. All you got to do is go to wherever you listen to podcasts, whether you watch it, whether you listen to it, type in Total BS Podcast in the search bar, subscribe, do whatever you can to get behind us, leave us a review, and share it with all your friends.
Absolutely. Hey, he said it all when he said it. And that's another episode of the Total BS Podcast. We appreciate you guys all for joining. Thanks to our new followers and the people that actually interacted with the show, and we can't wait to see you next Sunday. It's going to be fun. So come, stick around, ask questions. She's going to be here to answer them. Samantha from Ambition Mate. We can't wait. We'll see you when we see you. Peace.
Your fans just might turn into all fans. Be cool, it's just a part of this program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us, yo. Your fans just might turn into all fans. Be cool, it's just part of the program. Spit your best 16 if you must. You're not whack, you just sound whack rapping after us. For real.
Oh man, I forgot to hit the end